bottles. I have two 5-liter water bottles which I will use, right? So you can get yourself a 5-liter water bottle, or you can get yourself 10-liter water bottle, or maybe 3. Just what you have and what you can carry. As usual, we have our chairs to support us when you're working out. I like them because they are portable and you can easily move them around the room, just depending on where you're comfortable or where you can actually see me. Yes, because I want you to join me in this episode as we hit those legs. Yay! And we need those toned shoulders. Right. So I'll give you like 30 seconds. 30 seconds, well, because I was talking and I was assuming that you're assembling some of this stuff. So I'll give you 30 seconds to get the water bottles and to place your chair or whatever you will hold in case you need to, if you're not good in balancing yourself as you do this workout. So I'll put my timer starting now. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Don't go back to bed. Yeah. There we go. There we go. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna put a timer starting now. Make sure you have your water as usual. You need it to hydrate during this session. So make sure you have your water. My name, I said, is Evelyn of Eval Health and Fitness, EVEAL on Instagram or on Facebook. You can follow us, right, for more tips on how to get your body toned and all looking nice. So we have 5 more seconds to go. I'm sure you've already gotten your water bottle, you've already laid out your setup, and you've woken up your partner if at all you have any, and if you don't have any, don't worry, I'm your partner for the day. Right, time's up. So we're going to start with a warm-up. We're going to start with the warm-up. So we are going to do jump squats. We're going to do 12 repetitions times 3 sets, which is going to help us just lubricate our jaw and get everything moving. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe you cannot do impact, so you'll do that and that you count as 1. So we are going to do 12 times 3. 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Well done. Well done. So, let me put a timer. So rest time, walk around, stretch that body. Are you feeling those cracks? We're starting to wake up. If you're like me, you can still feel some of those cracks. So just crack them, you know, and walk around. We have 10 more seconds left, 10 more seconds left, 10 more seconds. 5 more seconds, 5 more seconds. And time's up. Next set, 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well done. The rest time starts now. You have 30 seconds of rest. You can walk around, right? You can walk around. There we go. We have 10 more seconds. We just look around. Look around, look around, look around, look around. We have 1 more set to go of the warm-up. 1 more set to go of the warm-up. And there we go, time's up. 1, 2, 3, and move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, I was almost going beyond 12. There we go. So our time's up. Our work, we've done that. So our next workout, I'll go ahead and demonstrate. We are going to do lunges, alternating lunges. So if you have an injury or if you're still learning how to balance using our chair or our surface, whatever you're able to hold, you'll do that. And then that one. Alright? But if you can balance, we're going to add a little spice. So we're going to do alternating lunges. We're going to do 12 times 3. Take your water bottle. Make sure the lid is secure enough so that it does not pour water on you, because we are going to hold it high up. Alright? So we're going to hold it high up as we do alternating lunges. We're going to do 12 times 3. So take your water bottle, secure it there, and then take it up. 1, 2, 3, go. Lunge backwards. That. 1. Up. Make sure it's up. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. Hold it up. 10. 11. And 12. Well done. Your rest time starts now. Walk around, take some water, then sit down, because that feels so good. That feels so good. So today we are doing some legs and shoulders. You want those arms toned, you want the legs just right. So we're doing the legs, shoulders. We have 5 more seconds left. Walk around, then sit down, walk around. And that person, that one person who hasn't waken up, please tell them we are here. And it's a new normal. And we are adapting so fast. And we have mastered how to start our day. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, take it up. Now we are doing the forward lunges. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and one more, and 12. Well done. Well done, well done. All right. All right. Your rest time starts now. Walk around, walk around, walk around. You're doing well so far? Are you feeling good? I'm sure you are. If you could carry a 10 liter, you can go ahead and do so. But I'm going to tell you, it's going to be challenging in a good way. It's good to challenge yourself always, always, always. We have 5 more seconds to go. 5 more seconds to go. We are almost there. There we go. Time's up. Time's up. Let's go. So we're going for the third set. The third set we'll do the front lunges, okay? Where we step to the front. So hold your water bottle. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and one more, 12. Well done. Well done, well done. All right. Our rest time starts now. Now remember, what we're doing is shoulders and legs. So we're gonna get one of those bottles again. You will squat, take it up. 1, squat, take it up. 2. Now if you can't balance on the squat, you'll sit here, sit on the chair, holding the water, and take it up. Alright, so that will count as 1. If you're just scared of falling, but you can balance a little bit, you can just try securing yourself with the chair, but without sitting down. Alright. Alright, time's up. So we're going to do 12 times 3. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. There we go. We have 2 more sets, 2 more sets, 2 more sets to go. 2 more sets. Walk around, walk around, walk around. You're doing well so far. So we are working out our legs and shoulders. And shoulders, this baby here. Right? Good, 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 good. Good, good. Let me see the time. Let me see our timer. Alright? Alright, there we go. Time's up. We're going for the second set. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, and go. 1, 2. Nice and slow. Don't be in a hurry. 3. Make sure you're feeling your muscles. 4. Alright. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. 11, and one more. 12. Well done. Well done. We have one more set. Walk around, walk around, walk around, walk around. This is feeling so good. Walk around. Don't sit down. The trick is don't sit down, because you got this. You got this, you got this. Walk around, walk around, walk around. Alright, we have 10 more seconds to go before our last set of that workout. 10 more seconds to go. 5 more seconds. 3, 2, time's up. There we go. 1, 2, 3, and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Oh, I say 12. There we go, there we go. Our rest time starts now. So our next workout, I will demonstrate. We're going to do a squat, and then you do that 1, right, 2. So we're going to do 12 times 3. So let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure your legs are out. 5. It's a sumo squat. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and right. Ciao. So your rest time, starts now. Your rest time starts now for 30 seconds. So you walk around, then sit down, walk around, walk around, walk around, walk around, then sit down. Right. We have 15 more seconds of rest, 15 more seconds, 15 more seconds. Walk around, walk around. We have 5 more seconds, 5 more seconds. And time's up. Set number 2. You're going for set number 2. Let's go. Nice. Make sure your legs are sticking out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and job. Well done. Well done, well done. Your rest time starts now. 30 seconds. Walk around and sit down. Walk around, walk around. Remember, we're doing shoulders and legs. Shoulders and legs. Walk around. We have 15 more seconds. 15 more seconds. 10 more seconds. And time's up. Time's up. Let's go. Make sure your legs are up. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and right. 12. Well done, well done, well done. Your rest time starts now. So we're going for our last workout. We're going to do deadlifts, right? deadlifts. Just bend over. So we're going to get the other water bottle. You remember I told you to get 2 water bottles? Now we're going to use the second one. We're going to do deadlifts, and we're going to combine it with raises. Okay. All right. Okay, we have 5 more seconds to go. 5 more seconds to go. And your time's up. Your time's up. So we're going to do deadlifts. 1, 2, 3, and move. 1, make sure your back is secured. 2, 3, we're doing 12. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So using one of the bottles, you bring it to your chest and take it to the front. 1. All right. So we are going to do 12 repetitions times 3, everyone after the deadlifts. 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, don't be in a hurry. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well done. Your rest time starts now. Your rest time starts now. Walk around. Rest time starts now. We have 30 seconds of rest. 30 seconds of rest. We have 15 more seconds. 15 more seconds. 15 more seconds of rest before we do the next set. 15 more seconds of rest. And there we go. Time is up. Time's up. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, and move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Well done. Now let's go. 1, 2, 3, and move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well done. Well done. Our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. We have 20 more seconds to go. 20 more seconds to go. 20 more seconds to go. 10 more seconds to go. 10 more seconds. 8 more seconds to go. 3 more seconds to go. Time's up. Our time's up. Our time's up. So we go for the last set. Let's do the last set. The last set. 1, 2, 3, let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now we're gonna do the other one. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. Let's walk around. Walk around, walk around, walk around. Walk around. We have 5 more seconds to go, 5 more seconds to go, 5 more seconds to go. Hands up. Now the next, our finisher for today, we're going to draw circles. Yes, we're going to hold our arms there and draw 20 circles times 3. Let's go. Hold it up. 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Well done. Your rest time starts now. So walk around. Are you feeling those shoulders? Are you feeling those shoulders already? All right. All right, all right. We have 15 more seconds to go. Just walk around, walk around, walk around. 15 more seconds to go. We've got 5 more seconds. 5 more seconds to go. Here we go. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 with me, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Well done. Well done. Your rest time starts now. We have 30 seconds of rest. Your rest time starts now. And stop moving so fast. You have to control the movement. You have to control the movement. We have 15 more seconds to go. 15 more seconds to go. Right. 15 more seconds. Okay. All right. We have 5 more seconds. 5 more seconds. And time's up. Time's up. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Control. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Don't be in a hurry. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Well done, well done. And that's it from us here today on Chizi Nyumbani. You kept up. This is so amazing. Look out for Peter in our next episode because he's coming with those, yeah, Have a lovely day.
Hey, as a professor, out of analytical observation, I have realized that there are 3 types of coughing. Kukohoa. Kuna wale wa huo ni mtu wako na pesa. Account is loaded. Kuna hawa wa
To get this Kizatune, dial star 811 star 848 hash for Professor.
How many times do I have to tell you not to just come into my house anytime you feel like?
Akizia kama kanakuaga na kelele yake. Now this new intern, can you ask her to come to my place immediately?
Tumekuja hapa sababu ya huyu. Tunataka aoe.
What do you have in mind?
Kuna mtu angependa kuolewa na mimi?
I need someone to...
Naona shida yako ni mapenzi, eh?
Umejua aje ilikuwa atafuta bibi.
Saa hizi kupimwa HIV ni haraka na ni bure. Unaweza pimwa kwa clinic na bado unaweza jipimia kwa nyumba yako wewe mwenyewe na self test kit 500 peke yake. Uko na HIV si eti ni mwisho.
Wewe uko nayo?
Mimi nilishapima.
Afya bora, maisha bora. Jipime, jiinue.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once I caught a fish alive. 6, 7, 8.
The young ones are at home, and we know how that can go. Don't worry, we've got you.
A lesson will be learned.
-3 times -4.
They can have fun as they learn on NTV.
What does 0 mean?
It's just a number that means nothing.
This is so much fun!
It's our secret.
NTV, turning on your world. Kids Edutainment in association with Blue Band Peanut Butter.
Mwenyezi Mungu atakufungulia hazina zake nzuri kutoka mbinguni na kubariki kazi za mikono yako. Utayakopesha mataifa mengi, lakini wewe hautakopa. Mungu atakufanya kuwa wa kwanza na sio wa mwisho. Hakika utaendelea mbele na sio kurudi nyuma.
To get blessings za maisha, SEO Kizatune, dial star 811 star 928 hash.
Beat sensitivity pain fast with Sensodyne Rapid Action for clinically proven relief in 60 seconds.
This is NTV.
Hello and welcome to your world. It is Wednesday morning, the 1st day of July. Now, like a hurricane tearing through a town, COVID-19 has affected every area of our life. Media too has not been spared, from collapsed business models to disrupted livelihoods. Many are feeling the pinch of the pandemic. So today we turn the spotlight on ourselves to explore what media will need to do to meet the changing needs of their consumers. Good morning. My name is Joseph Warungu, and coming up, rethinking media after the pandemic. How is media preparing itself for the transformation? Schools in Tanzania reopened after 3 months of closure due to the coronavirus.
Collapse in demand for advertising has been something that the industry has never faced.
We assess how the world of advertising has been affected by COVID-19. We take a look at American artists who performed at the BET Awards online ceremony in Los Angeles. This morning, we're asking you, what kind of media content are you consuming and why? What kind of media content are you consuming and why? But first, let's catch up with the latest on COVID-19 around the world. And as I speak, 10,585,152 people have tested positive for COVID-19. And out of these, 5,795,101 people have so far recovered from the disease. 513,913 have sadly passed on as a result of COVID-19. That's the picture globally. Coming to home in Kenya, as I speak, 6,366 people confirmed positive so far for COVID-19. Of these, 2,039 have recovered, and sadly, we've lost 148 people in Kenya as a result of the disease. Across the border to Somalia, to the northeast even, this is the situation. 2,924 people confirmed positive for COVID-19. 910 people have so far recovered, and in Somalia, they've lost 90 people. In our other neighbors across the East African region, Uganda to the west, 889 people confirmed positive for COVID-19. 819 have recovered, and so far, as we speak, almost 4 months into the pandemic, Uganda has not reported a single death. And in Tanzania, these numbers have not changed for almost close to 2 months. 509, the last time they reported, have tested positive. 183 have recovered. 21 people in Tanzania have been reported to have died as a result of the disease from the last figures that were shared by the authorities there. In Rwanda, this is the situation. 1,025 people confirmed positive thus far. 447 people have recovered, and in Rwanda, they've lost 2 people due to COVID-19. Our other East African country, Burundi, again, this is the situation. 170 people so far confirmed positive for COVID-19. 115 have recovered, and 1 person in Burundi has so far died as a result of COVID-19. That's the scenario in East Africa as the virus continues to spread in different parts of our nation and other countries. Now, schools in Tanzania remain open after 3 months of closure due to the coronavirus. There's been a great response from both students and teachers, they say, attending classes. After a long break, you can see all classes are full of students. The lessons have started. Almost 90% of students have arrived at school, and they are happy to be back in school after a long holiday.
Mwitikio ni mkubwa sana. Kama unavyoweza kuona, vyumba vyote vya madarasa vimejaa wanafunzi, lakini hata walimu pia wote wako madarasani. Na kwa idadi ambayo tunao katika shule yetu, tukiangalia ya kwamba ukipita katika vyumba vya madarasa karibia 90% ya watoto wako madarasani, na wengi wamekuwa na hamu kubwa ya kurudi katika masomo yao baada ya likizo ndefu.
Sisi kama walimu tumefuata taratibu zote ambazo zimeelekezwa na Wizara ya Afya, ambayo kubwa ni kuhakikisha tunavaa barakoa, kuweza kuwa na maji tiririka. Kama unavyoangalia katika maeneo ya shule yetu kuna maji tiririka ya kutosha na sabuni. Lakini pia tunahakikisha kwamba sisi wenyewe kama walimu tunakaa distance, yani umbali wa mita 1 kati ya mwalimu na mwalimu. Kadhalika tumelizingatia kuweka umbali kati ya wanafunzi wetu wakiwa darasani, hatuwaweki wakiwa wamesongamana ili kuweza kupunguza maambukizi endapo kutoka kuna mtu mwenye maambukizi.
I'm so happy to come back again to school because we have lost a lot of time at homes doing nothing.
We still want to proceed with education because when we have staying at home, there is many things we have lost to learn. And if we are coming back to school, we can fill that gaps of what we have to learn.
Kuhusu swala la wazazi kuwa na hofu, wasiwe na hofu kwa sababu serikali imechukua uangalizi mkubwa sana. Wametuletea matenki ya maji, we have sanitizers na barakoa tutatakiwa tuvae all the time tukiwa kwenye mikusanyiko. Kwa hiyo mzazi usiwe na hofu, mtoto wako atakuwa salama, naye mwenyewe mshauri mtoto wako afanye vitu ili aweze kujikinga na coronavirus.
Ndio hali halisi Tanzania ambako wanafunzi sasa wamerejea darasani. The government says it is content with the level of preparedness and adequacy of safety measures taken by the Kenya Airports Authority ahead of the resumption of flights. Transport Cabinet Secretary James Macharia says the measures taken at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport have been replicated in all airports across the country. Julian Samboko has the details.
Kenya's aviation sector is set to join the rest of the world in the gradual and guarded resumption of business following the disruption occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic. The government suspended all flights on March 23, 2020 following a surge in imported cases of COVID-19. Transport Cabinet Secretary James Macharia says the country is now set to resume flights.
These protocols are in line with the International Civil Aviation, ICAO, and many other international associations like IATA to make sure that we comply, number one, with the international standards, but also number two, we add on what we think is, we add value to ensuring safety of our passengers.
We have made a lot of changes at the airports. As you can see where we stand, there are physical distancing markers scattered all over. We have installed more than 300 sanitization stations and we continue to add more.
We are waiting very, very anxiously to hear His Excellency, the President, announce the date for takeoff, both domestic and international.
On its part, the national flag carrier Kenya Airways says it is ready for takeoff and assures travelers that COVID-19 prevention measures will be adhered to aboard flights.
There are certain protocols that you need to follow when you come to the airport. Your temperature will be checked. If your temperature is below a certain limit, then you can fly. Your luggage will be, be sanitized. All your hand luggage should be put into your luggage before you go through the check-in.
The board of national flag carrier Kenya Airways estimates that the airline could lose up to 50 billion shillings in revenues by the end of 2020 due to the disruptions associated with the coronavirus pandemic. Julian Samboko, NTV.
84% of Kenyans from low-income households say that the COVID-19 pandemic has greatly impacted on their livelihoods, while 54% are now unemployed, according to TIFA research firm, which conducted the survey. Majority of low-income households are now struggling to make ends meet due to reduced or no income at all. Helen Aura reports.
COVID-19 has forced Kenyans to adjust to a new way of life, which for many includes lower pay, working from home or losing their jobs. And most of this affected are from low-income households.
We see that more men have been affected in terms of employment because other things being equal, there are more men than women involved, actively involved in the economy. More women, not by far, not all, but more of them are based in the household. So that you find, when we ask the question about the main concern over the next 3 months, if this current situation continues, you see more women than men expecting to be facing the challenge of hunger.
According to a report by TIFA Research, 69% of Kenyans from low-income households have experienced reduction in earnings. 43% have lost their income due to loss of jobs. 22% of households are experiencing an increase in hunger, while 13% are experiencing reduced income due to the rise in the cost of living.
Specifically, in what ways have your daily life changed? We did have 21% in round one who said there's been a restriction of movement. Now this went down to 10% in this current round, which we've released now. So I think it's important. Concern with crime in the context of these restrictions, even with the reduction of curfew hours, is measurable.
9 out of 10 of those who have experienced a loss of income mentioned food and non-alcoholic drinks as the main area in which their spending has been reduced. Education has also been affected by the pandemic as schools are adapting to e-learning, but due to lack of technology, many children from low-income households are unable to attend to the online sessions. Helen Aura, NTV.
Okay, so this morning we turned the mirror on ourselves in the media industry, how COVID-19 has impacted what we do, what media needs to do in order to stay afloat, essentially. And to help me with this discussion, I'm joined by a number of experts. First of all, here in the studio, we have Churchill Otieno, who is the managing editor for online as well as new content here at the Nation Media Group. We also have Njoki Shege, who's the Director, Innovation Center at the Aga Khan University Graduate School of Media and Communication. We're also joined via Zoom by Sarah Katusia, who's the Managing Director of Mediacom East Africa. And a little later on, we'll have Professor George Ogola, who is a former Kenyan journalist, now teaching at the University of Central Lancashire in the UK, as well as Walter Mwesige, a reporter at NTV Uganda. Also via Zoom, Nanjira Sambuli, who is a researcher and a policy analyst, and Nanjira also specializes particularly on how ICT impacts on governance as well as media. So that's my panel, and the topic is rethinking media post-COVID. So we're already thinking COVID is over. Where does media need to be? Churchill, let me kick off with you. Maybe first of all, how has COVID, just generally speaking, impacted on media? I forgot to say that you're also the president of the Kenya Editors Guild, so you're wearing two hats for purposes of this discussion. When you look across the industry, how has COVID affected media operations?
Fairly significantly. Media was already going through a lot of disruption, especially coming from technology and challenges with the business model. COVID forced the audiences that media relies on to behave differently. And it then forced media to try and chase those audiences to deliver the story. Because usually when in times of crisis like COVID is globally, the public turns to media for reliable and credible information. But it turned out that with lockdowns all over, for example, it became quite a challenge to distribute newspapers. And in our country, newspapers is one of the critical sources of credible information. And secondly, for broadcast channels, journalists found it a lot more difficult to go out, find information and verify that information and bring it back to their audiences in a timely way. Because with social distancing, sources not being able to come to studio like we are in today, or meet with journalists as frequently and as often as both parties would love, meant that the news process happened a lot more slower. Yeah, and therefore stories became a much bigger challenge for us to deliver on. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Now let me turn to you, Nanjira. You also, I think, mainly live on the digital space. Has that too been impacted by COVID-19?
Yeah, I think this is one pandemic that has affected every sphere of society. So understandably, the digital as well has been a theater of seeing very different actions taking place. I think one of the most potent ones, of course, has been all of us have, in a sense, or most of us having to be forced to some sort of digital existence. That is this shift to working from home, whatever that looks like, schooling from home, really relying also on the internet to keep us connected to our economic, social, and other lifelines. That said, it's also been a very good test for whether all the talk we've heard about our country's Silicon Savannah status actually count. Because at this point, we've also started to see it's not just been as easy as just saying, go get online and go. The issues of affordability have been laid bare, affordability for the internet. And a very good example here has been the students at the University of Nairobi pointing out that the setup that they got for their online learning was just not possible. They could not afford to go out and get the SIM cards that were set up for the special deal. The accessibility and affordability of that internet, the quality of it, has just made it impossible for their learning to continue as expected. So this is actually a very good show of just where we are when the rubber meets the road. Okay. Another aspect is obviously that most people just purchase bundles maybe for a day-to-day, but now having to rely on doing a lot online requires that they purchase at bulk, which does cause a dent, of course, on budget. So that means that the consumption of media via digital is also shifting.
Okay, thanks, Nanjira. Now, Sarah Katusi to you now, and you are in the world of marketing and especially advertising. Now, the advertisers' cash was one of the first things to disappear from media. Has advertising too been affected by COVID-19?
I think the fact that consumers have changed their habits and have been affected by COVID-19, then advertising has been affected. We've seen shifts from when COVID started in March to now, where the first phase was very acute. Every consumer is really trying to be so strict on themselves. Clients just went offline, 100%. But we're quickly seeing a bit of recovery where consumers are coming back to life because, well, this is the new normal we have to live with. And then advertisers are slowly coming back to life. And I think most of it was out of fear. We didn't have any data, in 100 years, we haven't had a big pandemic. So we didn't have any data to be able to tell clients what is the best way to go, what is the best thing to do at this moment in time. So most clients then just ended up, advertising most on digital and really killing their above the line mediums. But we are seeing them coming back because now we have a lot of data telling us that TV has grown with about 20 to 25%. YouTube has grown with about 60% plus. So then we have mediums that are actually now because they're digital or they're at home. And now clients are coming back to work on those mediums. While not all mediums are yet fully back. In a country like Kenya, we are not on lockdown. I think most mediums are working, but in markets like Uganda, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, where they're on lockdown, then you're almost on 90% advertising is off because there's no medium that is working. Okay. But is it really, it's about how do we shift as quickly as the consumer is shifting so that we can actually catch the consumer.
Thank you, Sarah. We'll come back on to how we get out of this. Njoki, to you, you're a journalist, an insider, now an outsider looking in. What changes have you seen?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of shifting towards, particularly with the audience, they've been shifting towards newspaper readership to TV viewership. Actually, studies have shown that TV viewership is at an all-time high. Although many experts have also said that this is not a very sustainable shift, and we might need to rethink business models moving forward, because this shift from newspaper, as Churchill has very rightly said, the pandemic has affected the distribution of newspapers to different counties. So people have moved towards TV. But then again, that's not enough to sustain us going forward. What we'll need to rethink is the business models, particularly digital-based business models, because we have seen a lot of shift also towards digital modes of consuming news.
Okay, now let's look at the impact has not just been on business, it's actually affected lives. And Churchill, the Editors Guild, alongside obviously the Media Council of Kenya, you've expressed some concerns about the cost in terms of the human cost of this pandemic on journalists.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. In the last 1 month or so, just over 100 journalists have lost their jobs, the main source of livelihoods. If you stretch back about 9 months, that number blows up to more than 300. Yeah. Of course, that affects them, that affects their families, it affects their livelihood. But from a democratic point of view, it affects the ability of our newsrooms to deliver to the citizens of Kenya in terms of the purpose of journalism in our country. And that must concern us as professionals, must concern government, must concern parliament, but overall must concern the public. Because if the strength of journalism is weakened, it means that the chance that the public get to know or get to access critical information for them to participate in the democratic pursuits is minimized. And overall, that then slows down the development of our nation as a democracy. And I think that's a huge issue. It's a huge public interest issue. And that's why we felt, as Editors Guild, to throw those issues out to the public for public discussion, public debate, so that together as a nation, we can find solutions and ask ourselves, going forward, with all this disruption happening, how do we make sure that all citizens are still capable, are able to get critical information that they need to decide who are their leaders, how best is the government delivering services to them, and so on and so forth.
Okay, now let's cross the border to Uganda, to Walter Mwesigye in Kampala. Good morning, Walter. Welcome to Your World.
Morning, Joseph, and thank you for hosting me this morning.
Now, we've just been assessing what's happening in Kenya. Can you give us a sense of Uganda? What's been the impact of COVID-19 on media?
Yeah, well, Joseph, the impact is not any different from what is happening in Kenya or probably globally, because, you know, a number of journalists equally here have lost their jobs. We had, you know, one of the government leading institutions in media, you know, issuing a letter to its journalists just, you know, a few days back, telling them that some of the positions that had been made redundant will finally fall vacant, as they cannot continue holding on to those people, and there will be communication made to them, which, you know, is very unfortunate. This, of course, squeezes in all those small media houses, especially radio stations here. There were studies that were done that the shift has now moved to TV, you know, like some of the people there said. And we've seen, you know, the viewership increasing, but of course that does not directly correlate to the money coming in, even when you have more eyeballs onto the TVs. And the study shows that this trend, you know, is likely to just be there for a while and may not have a lot of impact in terms of what the media would like to, you know, achieve in terms of feeding its audience. And that really sums up what is happening here.
Okay, Walter, thank you. Stay on the line for us. Now, Njoki, you still write regularly for the Daily Nation, and I noticed that just a few days ago you addressed this issue of the impact on journalists who've lost their lives. Can you just give us a sense of what, you know, what your thoughts were?
Yeah, so it's really sad and very ironic that an industry like the media industry that is actually known for highlighting the plight of many people, people who are going through a lot of injustices and difficult times, that journalists are actually bearing a very difficult burden for COVID-19. And it's always been my view that the media industry is not an industry like any other. You might want to argue that other industries, maybe tourism and the airline industries, have gone through very difficult times as well during the coronavirus pandemic. But the media industry is very special, it's very unique, and we cannot afford to have journalists worrying about basic things like their livelihoods, but they should be able to be on the front line of telling the stories, speaking truth to power if need be, and still be able to take care of their families, and most importantly be safe away from bodily harm. So I think for me, my point was that in the future we probably need to think about crisis preparedness for media. Are we really prepared for a pandemic, for example? Because today it's going to be a pandemic. Tomorrow it might be a different situation, maybe the digital disruption, maybe an economic downturn. And we need our journalists safe, well taken care of, with money in their pockets. It's very important. And we need them to be able to be confident enough to put their lives on the forefront without thinking about basic needs such as, taking care of their families and whatnot.
Okay.
So those are my thoughts.
Yeah. Now, Nanjira, Churchill mentioned that media was already facing challenges even before COVID. So my question is, where did media go wrong? Where did the rain begin to beat us?
The rain, it's an interesting question because the rain, I think, has been beating. The question is whether the umbrella was holding on, in a sense. I think of it, just 7, 8 odd years ago when the sort of blogging and digital space was on a take-up here in Kenya, and media's reaction to it was quite fascinating. It was a mix of everything. I think the 5 stages, as they're called, we saw the media go through that to a point of, acceptance. Then the pandemic came. I think there are a number of issues, and we can look at them from an industry issue, but also the wider society and where it's been. There's always this notion that media, the way media has been covering issues today in Kenya, is a reflection of what the audience wants. I think the metrics that we've been using, the media has been using, maybe have been a bit of a denial space, like sort of confirmation bias. And that's where I think all these things are coming to a head. I was just listening to the journalists, colleagues on this panel talking about TV viewership, and I'm like, is that a sufficient metric if you think people just want background noise just to keep them saying like something is normal? Can we really say they're interacting? Are those the right metrics to really get a sense of whether people are feeling that their information, the political diet or their informational diet is being fed? Along the way, I think these questions were dropped. And there's been a rush, understandably, to go with the quantitative, bigger flashy numbers for Sarah to be happy when you go to her, that kind of thing. But along the way, I think media lost touch with the communities that they're supposed to be serving. And one demographic I'll actually speak to here is the generation that's actually a majority population in this country. Those from 18 to about 26, 27-year-old. Can we honestly say that the Kenyan media today serves them? Is there, the political diet? Are you actually informing them? Can they speak of going to newspapers and TV and all the offerings you have, or online and elsewhere, and feel like they are becoming better citizens as a result of the content being served up? I think the answer is likely to be a yes.
Okay, and Sarah, from an advertiser's point of view, maybe what should media have been doing? Where did things go wrong for us to be caught up in this way?
I think, as Nanjira said, is for the longest time, there's been no change in what we see on TV, on what we see on radio. And there's an age group of younger audiences. And that's where digital is growing, because what they do is they go online and they find the information they want to get. So if you go to Twitter and the conversations young people are having on Twitter is because they cannot come to a panel on a media house and actually have those conversations. The reason Netflix is growing is because the content they want to see is not available out there, so they go online to look for it. And I think what the media missed is the shift when the target started changing, that they still kind of kept serving the older audiences. Now we're seeing a Kenya whereby your 18 to 30 is a bigger majority than any other age set. So then how does the media quickly start feeding to this person? And in a pandemic here where now this person is at home, unstable because maybe they don't have a job or they've lost their hustle, with a lot of free time in their hands. They're hungry for content, but where are they going to find this content? I think I've seen some media houses trying to feed into that shift, bringing in new content in this period, but I still believe the shift is not fast enough.
Okay.
It needs to be as fast as the consumer is changing. If you go to Netflix today, the changes in content has been very, very fast. Now they even have documentaries on activism, which they didn't have before. Why? Because that is what young people are looking for in terms of content. So how do we start developing content as fast as it's being consumed by young people?
Okay.
So the older audiences will still be watching TV and listening to radio and looking for news and looking for a more of reports to me kind of, just a reporting kind of perspective. But the younger audience wants to be much more involved, and they want the news in a very raw format as opposed to a very cleaned up kind of format.
Okay, Sarah, thank you for that. Now, when push comes to shove, people have to do whatever they can to survive. In this case, the pandemic has really given birth to levels of creativity that people didn't even know existed. As the coronavirus impacts many industries, the chief executive of the Advertising Association in the UK, Stephen Woodford, tells CNBC's Marketing Media Money how advertising is being affected.
From travel to construction, from entertainment to education, many industries have been impacted badly by the COVID-19 pandemic. As economies head for recession, it's the speed of change that has surprised many and impacts the advertising industry hard.
Previous recessions have been slow motion by comparison to this, so the sudden, in effect, collapse in demand for advertising has been something that the industry has never faced. And of course, the corollary of this is actually we've never been consuming more media. So if you look at falling demand and rocketing audiences and readership, actually media has never been better value.
And some areas of advertising are being hit harder than others.
Out of home and cinema are obviously going to be massively affected because their audiences have gone. Cinemas are closed and there's nobody out there on the streets. So advertisers are not going to be wanting to buy those media. With other media, the position is more mixed because some will be pulling back on plans because they can't keep up with demand, or some advertisers will be looking to conserve cash until they get a clearer readout on how their business is going to be impacted. So very hard to see a big picture other than pretty much everything is going to be down.
Brands positioning ads is one thing, making them in the first place is another. And that's a particular problem for London, given the UK's role as a global creative hub.
Production has been hit very, very hard because obviously most work has stopped, and the new work that's being produced will be produced using post-production techniques and avoiding live shoots because you can't take a whole crew on location at the moment. People are incredibly ingenious and inventive in these things, and I think we are seeing, and we will see even more, imaginative responses to this so that business can carry on. The government response so far has been, in terms of its help for business, has been terrific. Time and time again, going back 100 years, it's been shown that the businesses that advertise through a downturn, particularly when they advertise ahead of their share of market, if you have a share of voice that's ahead of your share of market, like for like, you will come out quicker and you will come out stronger. And that's of course because people actually do, brands are formed and shaped over the long term. And particularly at the moment where we have got the most engaged audiences we're probably ever going to have in terms of their home, they're consuming media, they want the news, they want quality news, they want great newspaper journalism, they want great broadcasting, they want great entertainment. We've got the most captive audiences we've ever had.
Sarah, this is your world. Let me ask you a quick question. When money disappeared from advertisers, money disappeared from our screens and radio sets, where did it go? All online?
No. I think the pandemic led to hit most businesses. They're also losing revenues. So if you look at a client who possibly sells juice, and maybe they used to sell 100 pieces of juice, in the first weeks of the pandemic, they would be selling 20 pieces of juice, which means that their marketing budget, which is a percentage of what they sell, has come down. I think most clients just felt, I want to stop. Maybe my communication is not relevant for this time. I need to actually go and develop something that is more relevant. But then there were clients who actually came to the fore very quickly. And I think we've seen brands like M-Pesa, ABSA, KCB, Glovo, who quickly came up with communication that was fit for this period and continued being on air. But as you must imagine, the pandemic has reduced the revenue of most businesses in Kenya. And therefore, the first place to cut is always marketing. So when you cut marketing, then you cut advertising.
Okay. Now, Churchill.
To be efficient, you have to ensure they spend smart. And therefore, the budgets have gone back, not per se gone to another medium from TV.
Okay, now Sarah, thank you. And still a little bit in the world of advertising, soft drinks giant Coca-Cola is the latest big brand to suspend all paid advertising on social media platforms globally for the next at least 30 days, joining more than 100 major advertisers in a boycott to protest failure by social media platforms to crack down on hate speech.
When the Stop Hate for Profit campaign encouraging big advertisers to plug advertising on Facebook began a few weeks ago in an attempt to pressure the social media company to crack down on hate speech and misinformation on its platforms, there were only a few brands behind it. But by Friday morning, the campaign had gathered momentum with more than 90 brands joining the push that saw Facebook's shares falling sharply, forcing it to implement policy changes around hate speech and voter suppression. Facebook founder and CEO Mark Zuckerberg said the platform will remove hate advertisement against minorities or those that incite violence or attempt to suppress voting, even from political leaders. The measures have, however, done little to quell the wave of companies pulling advertisement from the platform, with consumer goods giant Unilever suspending social media adverts in the United States for the rest of the year. Honda will withhold advertising on Facebook and Instagram in the US for the month of July, while soft drinks maker Coca-Cola has suspended all social media advertising for the next 30 days.
So that's how we're starting to build out focus.
Of Facebook's $70 billion annual revenue, about 98% of it comes from advertising. Ahead of the US 2020 presidential election, social media firms are facing pressure to control hate speech and misinformation on their sites, something that still haunts them given the rampant disinformation that spread online during the 2016 campaign. Victor Kiprop, NTV.
So, Churchill, I suppose the question is, for how long can media continue to rely on advertising as the key revenue driver? Is it really sustainable?
I think that model is broken. Advertising can no longer pay for journalism, can no longer fund journalism sufficiently and leave enough on the table for the various investors in the media space. Journalists and editors have recognized that across the world, but especially so in Kenya. I'm aware that in most of our mainstream newsrooms, most of our mainstream media houses, there's a lot of creative work going on to reimagine the business models and just find other clean money that can fund journalism. Because remember, at the end of the day, what the public cares about to be able to trust these enterprises is that they have pure journalism coming across, that they can actually trust and believe that the information they get from these outlets are reliable. And a lot goes into making sure that the money is being used to fund journalism is actually not interfering with the editorial independence of those entities. And therefore, the source of that money becomes a critical debate in most of the media houses. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now, Nanjira, we've seen quite a few media personalities trying to reinvent themselves in the digital space. I wonder whether advertising money is sustaining them?
I'm sure. I mean, that's only they can speak to that. Obviously, money does run the digital space as well. It's not been immune to that. And I think the Facebook example is very instructive of where also the rain started beating the media. And in a sense, you also handed them the torrents, in a sense, when many media houses sort of were lured into the Facebook world and the model that Facebook sold, and then they did a classic bait and switch. And your own infrastructure was not up and going, and therefore you were left on where they give you real estate on the platform, which advertisers they're allowed to see your content, and so on and so forth. So I imagine even for those who ventured, I think that there are two varieties or more varieties of people: those who've tried to go at it with the same model but individually, which probably works because they're just one person and can sort of maneuver faster. But there are also those who are trying to do the basic work of getting the building blocks right again. And I think that's something that even the mainstream media today, if it wants to exist in this decade and be relevant and not just another fossil carried forward, for lack of a better frame, will have to think about that. What does it look like to actually build community? When you think about viewers as just people, do you think of them as communities to engage on different levels, or people for whom you serve ads? And if the latter is not working, to what Churchill has spoken, how do you build community community around the content you're offering? How do you go back to media as a public service? That also helps with this other business-oriented element. That's going to be a question for mainstream media, for influencers, for anyone who's really trying to carry a crowd forward and inform them on some issues or other.
Okay, now, Njoki, as Director of Innovation at the Aga Khan University, is there any work going on in terms of, well, what kind of models, how media will sustain itself, what kind of storytelling we will need to adopt for the future?
Yeah, so there's a lot of work going on, and we are focusing on products that deliver journalism to the under 35s, that is the 18 to 35 demographic, because this has been a very elusive audience that many legacy media organizations are not able to particularly reach out. So we've been doing a lot of work on creating products, apps, and channels that specifically speak to these young people, not particularly dumbing down journalism, but providing a brand of journalism that speaks to them, a brand of journalism that is congruent to their aspirations, their hopes and dreams, and speaking to them in the language they understand. And of course, there's a lot of focus on publishing on digital, that is on social media, publishing on YouTube, and using some very exciting forms of storytelling. We're talking about experimenting with augmented reality, for example, experimenting a lot on graphics, video, and interactive kind of content, because young people many times they've been assumed to be just consumers of entertainment news, but that is not correct. Young people do care about the issues that matter to society. They care about democracy, they care about justice, and they care about politics, and they care about the economics and even the economy. So what is important is to create a form of journalism using very exciting storytelling channels to speak to them in a language that is understandable to them. So that is what we have been tinkering with at the Aga Khan Innovation Center. Okay,
Njoki, thank you. To you, Walter, in Kampala, how is the media, I know you're a big fan of radio as well, how is media surviving in terms of where is the money coming from?
Joseph, can I ask you to repeat your question? Sound was breaking.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to find out from you, where is the money coming from to sustain media in Uganda, especially radio, because I know you're a big fan of radio.
Yeah, well, sorry. Like I said earlier, the report that was done recently, a study by Geopol, which is, an organization that, does follow the media in Uganda and what they do, shows actually that, the listenership for radio has dropped since the beginning of January up to April 18th, and when they released the first report. And that is not about to change, because the Ministry of ICT here also carried out its own simple survey and announced that the impact on radio stations here will likely go away with many of them. So many of them are, community-based radios. We have, very few radios that actually do like real commercial broadcast. And this time around, they have been affected because if the TVs, have dropped in terms of the revenue they've been bringing in, yet they still have opportunity. They have many eyeballs now. Then the radio is probably, going to suffer much more. But the report from the Ministry of ICT shows that one of the biggest challenges for these radios has been, sustaining their employees. Many of them have dropped their employees, and they have, just sustained a few. And the fact that many of these radios outside Kampala are just community-based radios. They do broadcast for, their communities, and somehow they sustain themselves on cash from NGOs that are funding them. and community contributions. So now that the community is not contributing, the projection is that we are going to have close to 200 radios shutting down completely here in the country, as projected by the Ministry of ICT here.
Okay, Churchill, to you again. In terms of rethinking this space that we work in, what kind of work is going on? Are there interesting things that you see people thinking about?
Yeah, planning? Absolutely. I've seen most of our media houses working to adapt first with the immediate challenge, which is, for example, the challenge of distribution of newspapers. The Nation, for example, has pushed much more strongly its e-paper edition, so that those who like news in that format can still get it, even though within digital. So it's originated from the legacy, but adapted for digital consumption. And we've seen quite a sharp rise in uptake of that product. But beyond that, we have many of the media entities, and the Nation is right in there, creating and innovating new products for the natively digital kind of zone. So there are the online editions being souped up, there are dedicated products being developed, just to make sure that this new digital-only audience still finds relevant and useful and reliable products that can deliver the information that they need. Yeah, and I'm sure many are out there, but shortly there'll be lots of noise around some of these issues we're talking about.
Okay. Now, Nanjira, Njoki was making an important point there that we assume that to serve the under 35s, it's more entertainment that they need.
Yeah, I would call it an infantilization. It started with what were called millennials. Now we have Gen Z. I mean, I can't imagine if you thought we were all just fun and games with the generation of the 18s, those coming of age, what is being considered. Much in the same way as what Njoki and the team at her center are working on. It's not just about the tech. It's just not about the apps, right? It may be the popular way of consuming information today, but there's a huge risk of also chasing trends as opposed to understanding the undercurrent. Speaking to you can form any focus group with kids coming of age, university students or others, and you listen to them and you realize they just want to see a place where their concerns are aired. They're struggling with what kind of futures are going to be there for them. So feeding them, that's the story of who went where and did what. And in fact, also the kind of entertainment that is done is just crass, is really doing an injustice. So it comes to a question of, for this decade, a defining thing for any new or old media is going to be how many are letting them shape the rules of engagement. And by this, I mean, they're not just on the fringes. We've been talking about digital transformation for about a decade. When are we going to see this generation also be part of the media leadership in old and new media? That's going to be part of it, so that they're not just something that you go out there and consult and extract from, but are there constructively along the way helping build? Because for sure this decade is going to bring a lot more disruptions. COVID will look like child's play going forward. If we do not use this moment to open the avenues to bring them that are supposed to be served, them that form the majority population in this country, we're going to completely have a disconnect that might not be able to bring back together.
Okay, and Sarah, so the media is busy thinking how to reshape the new way of telling its story. And I wonder, is the story of the brand also changing, or how it is told?
As people are changing, as consumers are changing, brands are changing, and stories have to change. And I think if you see most of the brands in Kenya are no longer investing so much on entertainment for young people, but on empowerment for young people. So how do you actually then play content, and that the friction comes in where you have a TV station that only looks at 18 to 24 as an age to entertain and play music too. But then you have a client who looks at 18 to 24 as an audience to empower, because it's the audience that really matters for them. And so you find then clients start creating content and giving it to stations to air on their behalf, because they actually need to reach these people in a very different way. And I think the key question is to ask, how many stations do you think have young people being the decision makers on what goes on TV? You know, if you look at the people who make the decision of what is aired, it's not going to be someone possibly below 40. Yet the person you're serving is hugely below 40, and the needs of that audience is very different. But when you go into marketing, you do find most clients will always have younger people in their marketing departments and younger people in the advertising agencies. You know, we are an average of, I think, 6 in our agency at Mediacom. Why? Because our clients need to understand the needs of younger people, and it's best understood by the person who's already living that life. And I think until we shift the person who decides what goes on TV, then the content will always have a friction with the audience. And that's why the audience will go to watch blogs, will go to international media. They're going online to look for this information. And that is a shift. I think most brands have already started making it. I think for me is how does the media make it that then there's a perfect match in what brands are producing and what the media houses are producing.
Okay, and my last question to you just before we let you go, Sarah. If you were the managing editor of XYZ station, you now know what the reality is in terms of the marketing advertising world. What kind of change would you do with the benefit of knowledge from the other side of your world? You are now in charge of a TV, radio station, newspaper, whatever. What would you do?
This is a tricky question. However, you'd have to be fast, nimble, fluid, and really do things quickly. I don't think we have time to keep on thinking and analyzing what is going on. We need to start doing. We need to start actually changing that content. I want to switch on to TV and not watch the normal news across 7 stations. I want to be able to see the untold stories that young people can actually connect to. I like to see stories about how a young person in Nairobi, in Kisumu, in Mombasa can actually hustle in today's world where the pandemic is already making it very hard. How do they survive today? When they wake up today, what happens? How do they live today? How can they use whatever they have and what brands have to actually do something for themselves? Because if you the age we are talking to, they are hugely unemployed. So they are actually hustling. They're looking for jobs. There are no jobs. No one is hiring. So they actually go out there and try to do something. I've seen young people online selling meal kits where, this is a kit, you go and prepare the food in your house. Creating brands, selling socks, selling all manner of things, right? How do we actually empower that person? How do we stop being comfortable as media houses and passing the normal information that if I watch 3 stations at 7 p.m., same information across all the stations, who is going to be the one person that decides I want to act change, I want to stop being comfortable, I want to pass the information that actually people will come to watch on TV? Because there's something Nigeria said, we are seeing numbers on TV, but are those people engaged or are just in their house doing something else and the TV is just running in the background? If you want me to be engaged, then you have to have content that I actually want to listen and interact with. And I think you know what that content looks like. When NTV airs that content, you see the interaction that comes from online, you see the conversation that comes from online. How do we actually become the media houses that develop more of that content as opposed to just reporting on what is happening? If I'm a young person, I've already seen it on WhatsApp or on Twitter, on Facebook before 7 p.m. So I don't really want to watch it. I actually want to know what is the story behind it, or can we analyze it and go deeper on that conversation?
Okay. Sarah, thank you very much for that bit of free consultancy for I'm sure media is watching. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We wish you a good day and stay safe. Walter, as well to you, a quick question. You have an election coming up in Uganda soon. What lessons have media learned in terms of storytelling? Will the election story in Uganda be told the way it was told all those years ago?
Well, the elections here are going to be conducted, and of course I can say right now we are supposed to be in an election period where we're supposed to have campaigns and things of that nature. And, campaigns generally here in Uganda are characterized by, crowds, masses, and, gatherings. And all that for now was banned by the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commission announced that anybody who wants to contest, whether, for any position, will have to carry out their campaigns using radio and TV or, other media like social media. And of course, this will impact the way we have been covering elections as journalists and media houses, because first of all, we are, standing in a very difficult position. The Electoral Commission has given leeway to politicians to cash into radio stations and TV, and the media generally, to come and carry out their campaigns on air. So it will be very difficult. It's a hard place for many of us here who are going to, accept this cash and then still stand their position in terms of being neutral, in terms of being objective, and not trying to impact or not trying to, give a lot of leeway to the politicians out there to drive their narrative the way they want to. So that's the kind of situation they'll be dealing with here in Uganda. But of course, as journalists also, it will be a new thing because we are used to probably running around with these people in masses and, tear gas here and there for the members of the opposition. That's going to change. We will have probably to sit in our newsrooms and just listen on TV or radio and then have to write our stories.
Okay, Walter, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. Again, enjoy your day and keep safe in Kampala. Thank you so much. Right, we take a short break now in your world, but just before that, we look at some of the comments that you've made. We asked you a question: what kind of media content are you consuming and why? And here's a bit of what you're saying. Ray Parapet, you say tweets. That's your media, that's your content. This is who, and then Somi, you say entertainment because it lowers my stress level, okay? And also this is coming from Tene Karugo. I'm viewing live food channel in my microwave because I'm tired of the corona news. Sawa. And then this is Kirui Faith, you say udaku is the new normal. Kweli uko kwenye gossip, okay? Asante Faith. This is Nyabia Machora. Well, let's look at how we handle crisis in totality, not only in media. So those are just some of your comments. We'll be back with more after the break.
They have a camera man who is taking them photos in various styles depicting nakedness.
The children are at home and the children are locked up with the perpetrators.
Within a very few hours, I've been able to meet over 20 young girls who are pregnant.
wewe mate na tetemeka na magika hivi mtoto kidogo hivi.
Mtu akaenda akafunga mlango akaanza kunitoa nguo.
Akasema angependa akae na yeye akimchunga na sababu alimeta kama ngoli yake hatukufikiria chochote kinaweza fanyika. Hakukuwa na mtu yeyote kwa ward. Akaanza kumtumia msichana.
The courts will be available to give early hearing dates and hear those matters as quickly as possible.
Many of the people in this town are getting sick. Only when you got exposed that you started sending medical help. You already destroyed one of our towns. We won't allow you to do it again.
I don't want to waste my time on you, princess. Just do what you do best today, like stand somewhere and look pretty.
In case you have no idea who you're up against, I am Samantha Del Mundo, and I will destroy anyone who stands in my way.
Enjoy the naturally appealing taste of our unique fruit blends. Represent who you naturally are with Juice Drink. Naturally ours with no added preservatives. A quality product from Bidco Africa.
Hey, as a professor,
Out of analytical observation, I have realized that there are 3 types of coughing. Kukohoa. Kuna wale wa huo ni mtu ako na pesa. Account is loaded. Kuna hawa wa
To get this Skizotune, dial star 811 star 848 hash for Professor.
We want you to relax and feel safe in your own home, at the office, in a restaurant, at the salon, or any public space that you visit. Ace Cleaning products are a sure way of feeling safe and secure in your home.
As we continue to carry out retrospection as media in terms of what the future holds for us and how we need to adapt to that future, to the new normal, let's also look at news specifically. And we've been asking you, where do you get your news from? We've carried out an opinion poll, which is still live on our website. And here are the results as it stands at the moment. 3.5% of you say you get your news from the newspaper. From TV and radio, it's 10.2%. From social media, 80.2%. From blogs, 6.1%. So obviously, the big winner there is social media, and also, to some extent, maybe TV and radio. Now, Nanjira, let me come to you in terms of what that says to us. So a lot of people get their news from social media. What does that mean for mainstream media?
You know, there's another way that question probably should go going forward. Is social media, if you think of it as a gateway, is it to content coming from mainstream media, content being created by people on social media? What is the desired content that folks want? Where would they like to see from other sources? And that will give you more nuance. I mean, I think that statistic has remained the same for the last 10 years, so there's nothing new under the sun in that regard. The question is, on a deeper level, is it because of what NTV will share right now via their Twitter feed or their Facebook feed back to their content, or something that their own coexisting social media folks are doing? And that's where the nuances that we want to understand about media consumption are now.
Now, and just in terms of that, now that people have multiple sources of news, even on social media, is there a tendency to rank it all the same, you know, whether you're mainstream or, you know, you see a lot of stuff being shared on social, on WhatsApp, for example, and people don't care too much to see whether it's true, it's verified, or it's not, it's still going to be shared. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, the F news question. Well, I think that's where the value again of what would be mainstream media or recognized brands comes in, because I think people, not everybody maybe, but I think there's still value in check. I know I definitely would check, has this broken elsewhere? I remember especially like with the first case of Corona coming out, and when I got the WhatsApp story, I was like, these are live, right? And I had to go to mainstream media to see it. So there's still that value. And I think the question will be whether mainstream media is secure enough to know that you have a value in creating viability and verified information, or as a source of authority or confirmed information. And even when information is not confirmed and we see a trend, because people will look out for signals or somebody has confirmed this or not. Speaking to the fact that there's a process of trying to confirm it is where those value notions for media will continue to be, because that's what the industry is supposed to be. That's what journalism is about. And regardless of what the trends are now, they always settle or sediment into something. You don't want to be seen as just another person chasing a salacious story. You want to be able to say, yes, we have a consistency in being the people you go to actually find a source of verification in this very information heavy world.
And same question to you, Njoki. In that ecosystem, in terms of news sources and so on, where is the place of mainstream media going forward?
Yeah, and this is actually a conversation that has been going on globally, where we're seeing one of the biggest disruptors of media being the big two, that is Google and Facebook, and sometimes Twitter if you want. But I think this really means a lot for mainstream media, that they need to come up very strongly as the main sources of news for young people, especially because a lot of people who are consuming news on social media are actually young people. So I think there is a place for legacy media, in that in as much as we all 80%, like you've seen on the poll, in as much as we tend to consume a lot of news through social media, mainstream media needs to come up very strongly on the unique offering. So we can have social media just giving us the highlights and all that, but you have to go to the source, that is probably, let's say, NTV or Nation or Business Daily, for the in-depth kind of news. So for me, I look at it not particularly, there's one aspect of the disruption, but then there's also the aspect of social media as an enabler. I don't think social media has sort of come to replace the mainstream media. Because people still believe in the legacy media. There's something about the mainstream media that people see. For example, someone will say, if it was not on the Nation, for example, then I don't think it happened. Just like Nanjira mentioned, having seen something on WhatsApp and having to go to the mainstream website. So I think this is an opportunity for them, this to be leveraged and to come out very strongly as the source of in-depth, analytical, exclusive content.
So Churchill, does that mean that mainstream media will just be happy with the role of verifier rather than driver of news and driver of conversations?
I think it's a mixed ball in there. And as Nanjira and Njoki say, if you look at that social media bar, of course it stretches way out, it outstretches the rest by far. But if you unpack that bar, you'll find that a big chunk of it is actually contribution from what we are calling legacy media. So, and that shows us that even though the brands could speak to being legacy, they are very, very active in that new zone. And a quick check on the big social media accounts in Kenya today will actually show you that they're actually what we are calling the traditional media accounts that is driving that. But that said, what digital technologies have done is to sort of democratize access and ability to publish ideas and information out there into the world for people to consume. And that door then opens all sorts of information to come through. Lots of it of questionable quality, but a small bit of it of very, very reliable sources. So I think over time, what will matter is who inspires the best confidence and the best trust on the audience for them to attract a consistent return of that audience and reliability of, to get that audience to rely on them as a source of news. And that's where journalism, with these age-old processes and traditions of first verifying information before putting it out there, becomes critical. Because social media has these blinkers and lights and bells that drive people to want to spread it first and verify later. But we all know that journalism requires that we first verify it, because if it's not verified, then it doesn't exist and it need not be published. I think that becomes a very critical issue for us going forward. I mean, even during this COVID period, lots and lots and lots of propaganda, or what people are calling fake news, has been spread out there. But in many of them, you find that they still try to hinge them on known media sources. So you find somebody trying to reimagine the front page of the Daily Nation, for example, and put their own stories there. What does that tell us? It tells us that in terms of trust, the Daily Nation is still a lot more trusted than all these social media sources. And I think that's an important resource for us, not just as an entity, as a corporation, but also for the country. Because having reliable and believable sources of information is very, very important. And if you look at how the government, for example, has been giving out information on the pandemic, they have had to rely on known and traditional media sources. I think that's a resource that is important for us to keep.
Okay, Chachi, and now talking about social media, if we negate the fact that social media has played a major role in the media's changing face, we would be lying. Yesterday was World Social Media Day, and we have to acknowledge it. In the year 2000, social media didn't publicly exist. 17 years later, social media is governing our interactions and plays a role in our daily lives. Interesting to think about it, right? Okay, we have an additional guest to the panel. Professor George Ogola, good morning and welcome to your world.
Thank you. Good morning.
Nice to connect with you all the way from Lancashire in the UK. Now, just before you joined in, we'd been looking at where the media has come from in terms of, now trying to make the transformation that we need to. You have been a journalist yourself. You are now teaching journalism there. Again, a question to you, where do you think we went wrong, or in terms of not changing too quickly?
No, I think the problem is sort of the media has always been sort of what's generally referred to as path dependency. Relying quite a bit on history, and I think at some point that was, going to change. The disruption that the conversation that you've been having there didn't start sort of yesterday, or sort of when the pandemic started. These are conversations we've had for almost sort of 20 years now. So I think what the pandemic has done is really to accelerate, the disruption. But it's also added, something different. It's forced the sector to be self sort of introspect, to think about sort of a radical transformation, without which I think things are going to be very, very difficult. So I would imagine again, as a number of observers have said, that this should be seen more as an opportunity, rather than sort of a challenge that perhaps makes us rethink the role of the media. The mainstream media is still very important in our society, but I think we've got to be a lot more progressive sort of in our thinking, and it's not just a question of sort of technology. This is much more than technology. It's more about sort of the ethos of journalism itself. The mainstream media is just one of the many actors now in the broader sort of information ecosystem, and unless and until it acknowledges that is in fact the situation, that that privileged space that it's occupied or that is dominated for so long is gone, then it is going to struggle. So it's acknowledging sort of the reality of the moment. Things have to be done differently.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Just stay with us. Nanjira, to you now. Let's look at the detail of this transformation. I think now pretty much media accepts it's got to move, whether we like it or not. That change has got to happen. Where can we look to for inspiration? There are others who've walked this journey before us.
Well, first, look within our communities. There's so much energy, there's so much creativity. I mean, just our social media feeds alone. You can have a really interesting media diet in Kenya based on social media alone. Even this morning, I was just looking at some of the news that's being shared here versus how it's playing out on social media, and you realize we have a creative agency just waiting to be tapped into. There's also this notion, I think that's a broader, to a point that was made by an audience member about speaking to these things on a systemic view. In Kenya, there's this notion often that we must look externally to find inspiration, to look at sources. So the typical thing would be to recommend to Kenyan media, go look at, I don't know, a US media company that's doing something. But what we need to look within, because we do actually have a lot of creative insights here that remain untapped. You have basically a workforce that could be tomorrow's new media, if you want. The question is also how we formulate our questions and where our ethos, our political, social, cultural thinking is, because that's going to have to shift as well if we're talking about transformation. See, digital is just, again, as Njoki said, an amplifier. The transformation that we're talking about is the undercurrents of how we think about politics, how we think about societies, how we think about expertise. And starting with that to get the question right and getting the baseline right is what will help digital transformation actually be meaningful.
Okay, and to you, Njoki, as we take baby steps, where do we look for inspiration?
Yeah, I think we already know the basics. Number one, journalism will always pay for itself, and number two, that we need to look at the traditionally, historically ignored audiences, that is the young people. But really, I think the ideas are here with us. I don't think we need to go out there, copy paste what has been done by I don't know what newspaper and bring the same ideas here. We in our societies, in our communities, in our newsrooms have some brilliant ideas that we need to support, and we need to involve the people that we are targeting at the decision-making table. Young people, people from diverse backgrounds. Right now we are talking about diversity and inclusivity in the media. Can we see more of that? So I think in the media what we need is to start thinking about the next, M-Pesa of media, because M-Pesa is something that is homegrown, that we are very proud of internationally. Maybe this could be a teachable moment for us, that we sort of bring in those ideas, nurture them, support them, and fund them, which is actually the most important thing, and practice some level of patience that I've seen is lacking, because for every 10 great ideas, only maybe 2 or 3 will work if you're lucky. So we need to have that culture of innovation, that culture of experimentation, giving people the space and the capacity to fail and to try again and to try again until they get it right. It's just like drilling oil. You're gonna drill so many wells, but you'll only get like one well that has what you want. So I think we need to look inwards, like Nigeria has said, and support the ideas that are coming from us and not from outside.
Okay, Professor, from where you sit, what does journalism look like in the new normal? What needs, what needs to change? What kind of change?
I think a number of things have to change. Some are already sort of taking place, but I think for sort of mainstream media, really, it's about sort of value addition. As the originator of news, as I said, it's one of many actors. So I think it's got to think about what value is it adding to the experiences of audiences. And by value addition, I'm referring to a number of things. For example, you've got to have, somebody has talked about sort of a diverse workforce. It's not just about individuals, but it's also about sort of the expertise that you bring into sort of your newsroom. Let's have individuals who have read law, reporting on legal issues. Let's have people who have a background in health, the health sciences. Talking about COVID. You don't have to rely on expertise from the outside. These sort of regurgitation almost of press statements, is in itself, self-defeatist. Let's have somebody who can interrogate, statistics, who can tell us much more than what we might get sort of online. But equally, it's about having a workforce that is multi-skilled. Journalists, have to rescale. I think that's inevitable. The continuous development programs, they've got to be part of that. In every sector that you look at, this is something that is very normal. It's not so normal in journalism, and I think that is something that they have to look at. But also the culture of entrepreneurship. I think that's key. The media is a business. It's not sort of philanthropy. So you've got to think about your news item both in the normative sense that it's got to do something to the public, but equally you've got to think about it as a product. I think that's inevitable. If you add value to your news product, people will indeed sort of buy it. The other thing that media organizations ought to do is they've got to invest in audience research. I think time is gone when you simply have to rely on surveys, who watches what program or who reads a particular newspaper. Develop sort of data points and metrics that can help you profile, and I mean this in a very positive way, profile your audience so that you actually know what it is that they actually need. That old model where, there's sort of a hierarchy of power between audiences and newsrooms. I think that's gone.
Okay.
The relationship is a lot more sort of conversational.
Prof, let me.
I think
let me pause you for.
These are issues that should be at the center of any sort of transformative agenda adopted by any media organization in the country as elsewhere.
Okay, Prof, thank you. Now, Churchill, the newsroom of the future, and by future I mean as soon as COVID is over, how does that look like? How does news gathering look like from the field? What needs to change?
I think we have to take that from a shared understanding of what journalism is. Many times people use that as a synonym to media, and I think there's a slight difference there. I'm always reminded of the simplest definition of journalism, and it comes from a great author that shares the name with Professor George Orwell. And he says that journalism is publishing something that someone doesn't want you to publish, and everything else is PR or advertising. And if we take that definition as given, then we will need to find these things that people don't want us to tell the world about. Yeah, so that seems to already emphasize a lot more on investigations, a lot more on analysis. Yeah, but given the world we are in, the tools, the methods that we use to investigate, the method that we use to then put together the stories and adapt new formats to tell it in a compelling way to the public will be a lot more enabled by digital tools, if you like. So there's a lot of investments that our newsrooms must make to make that shift, so that instead of having a reporter travel 100 kilometers away, that they can be enabled to actually still find reliable information that is 100 kilometers away without making that journey. And I think if there are any positive aspects out of this pandemic, one thing it's really reinforced every single day is that life can still continue without physical movement. Yeah, and I think that's a positive insight coming out of this situation that I hope, and I think many media newsrooms are organizing to actually mainstream rather than use as an adaptive method.
Okay, now Nigeria television people or television journalists are usually uptight in terms of standards and so on. For example, before COVID, interviewing someone on Skype or something they would do with gritted teeth, but now, Zoom is what else do we need to loosen up on?
Yeah, that reminds me of NTV Press Pass, the first launch many years ago. I've really journeyed with this transformation. I guess it's the age-old saying, disrupt or be disrupted. And this again goes, I guess, to the media industry and what it has the norms it's made possible or has sort of sedimented in how people have been trained or come to expect the job to be. Yeah, I personally don't think I'm coming into a studio anytime soon after this, because this is convenient, right? To Churchill's point about the 100 kilometers, trust me, the 10 kilometers to CBD might be more hectic than the 100 kilometers on a highway, right? So this is the new normal, as you were saying, and the baby steps start here. And this is actually a very good opportunity to do a number of things. I will say, for example, let's say from July 1st, 2020, I would like to hold NTV to the following account. You cannot say now you can't, or you can only have all male panels or all geriatric panels, because you can use this way to get people. And if it's a challenge, for example, of getting people data, you can find ways to have bundles made available for those who need to join in and bring those perspectives if affordability and availability is an issue. But July 1st, 2020 onwards, no more all-male panels and no more all geriatric panels about the issues affecting this country. Thank you very much.
So, Ranjira, you're saying COVID has already democratized this space that we are currently sitting in?
We're not ceding the space we've gained. We're not going to remain outside screaming. This should be the new normal, as the baby steps you're talking about. If you miss those, I don't know how big ones are going to be feasible to make.
Wow. Okay, Njoki, what do you want to unpack in terms of media? What should we throw away?
I think we need to throw away this guesswork that we see a lot, where we favor intuition over data, that we think that, maybe this is what the audience wants. I kind of have a feeling that this is what young people would appreciate on media. So post-COVID, if ever there will be such a period, I say that very advisedly, we are going to see a very heavy reliance on data. Data is going to be very central to the newsroom of the future, where we will use it to, number one, not just understand the audience to the to the granularity, but also to understand what they consume. For example, you want to understand, get the DNA of the audience. You want to understand the kind of content that would tick them off, and the kind of content that would be attractive to them. So I think data is something that I know a lot of media organizations locally are investing in. Some of those that we look to outside have really concretized this, and I think this is something that we're going to see very clearly going forward.
Okay, thank you, Njoki. And on that, we can take a short break. We'll be right back with Your World.
The blind man told police officers, afade mimi sijawahi ona bangi maisha yangu yote.
Hizo ma award zikafanya watu waanze kuimbia award badala waimbe the word.
Mimi mkinichagua mtaona miujiza.
Anajifanya squeezy.
Kibia mara moja.
Naogopa Mwenyezi Mungu na uji moto peke yake.
Hiyo si bangi.
How many times do I have to tell you not to just come into my house anytime you feel like?
Akizia kama kanakuaga na kelele yake. Now this new intern, can you ask her to come to my place immediately?
Tumekuja hapa sababu ya huyu. Tunataka aoe.
What do you have in mind?
Kuna mtu angependa kuolewa? Na mimi.
I need someone to...
Yes. Naona shida yako ni mapenzi, eh?
Umejua aje ilikuwa atafuta bibi.
Saa hizi kupimwa HIV ni haraka na ni bure. Unaweza pimwa kwa clinic na bado unaweza jipimia kwa nyumba yako wewe mwenyewe na self test kit 500 peke yake. Uko na HIV si eti ni mwisho.
Wewe uko nayo?
Mimi nilishapima.
Afya bora, maisha bora. Jipime, jiinue.
We want you to relax and feel safe in your own home, at the office, in a restaurant, at the salon, or any public space that you visit. Ace Cleaning products are a sure way of feeling safe and secure in your home.
Time now to exit your world briefly to see what else is going on in the other world. As the COVID-19 pandemic halts tourism to Bolivia, a company based in La Paz offers virtual tours and visits through a video conference app, giving visibility and income to rural communities dependent on tourism. This is much more than just a simple visit to a petting zoo, they say. This is about coming to and diving into local culture. This is coming and seeing not only where llamas live, but where they actually came from, where they originated, meeting local people who care for them every day and have for generations. It's a good way for us, they say, to have some fun, bring a bit of joy to the people that are stuck at home, and allow people to share in that wonder of travel that we all need and love. But unfortunately, at the moment, we cannot do.
Las llamas, por favor. Get your llama fingers out. You can do llama love with double L, of course. The llama love. Espérate un poco. ¿Así? Okay. Y usted espera que las personas que hacen.
Okay, Zoom tourism there in Bolivia. Taiwan's transport and health ministers remove a face mask from a sun sculpture at a ceremony in Taipei to kick-start a domestic tourism initiative. The government has allocated $130 million in subsidies to encourage travel within the island. Taiwan has gone for more than 2 months without domestic transmission of the coronavirus disease, and its infection rate is one of the lowest in the world, with less than 500 people having tested positive for COVID-19 and only 7 people reported to have died from the disease. In Laval, where the memory of the author Ubu Alfred Jarry is cultivated, the eccentric World Toothpick Museum offers an authentically false and truly imaginary collection of 70 of these objects, each as crazy as the next. Claudine Ovain, co-founder of the World Toothpick Museum, says that one still needs to isolate yourself to go pick your teeth. It's true, but it's not. I don't find it disgusting, he says, for someone to do that in front of you. No.
Alors, hop, tac. Voilà. Vous voyez pas? Je me dis qu'ils ont dû profiter du fait qu'ils n'avaient plus rien à se mettre sous la dent.
Sorry, if you're having your breakfast, we're picking our teeth. Now, a plane gets a water salute as it becomes the first to take off from the Orly Airport south of Paris after it has shut down on March the 31st amid the coronavirus pandemic. Orly Airport south of Paris is to reopen Friday after shutting down on the 31st amid the coronavirus pandemic, but with just a fraction of its normal flights. A plane to Porto, Portugal is scheduled to take off at 6 a.m. and around 25 destinations are to be served via 70 takeoffs and landings, compared with 600 a day before the virus crisis grounded aircraft worldwide. American performers John Legend, Alicia Keys and Usher perform at the BET Awards online ceremony in Los Angeles. On the night, the former US First Lady Michelle Obama presented Beyoncé with BET's 2020 Humanitarian Award. French activist Assa Traoré was also presented with the BET Global Good Award on the night.
As the water rises and the mountains shake, all love will remain.
I'll think of all you could have done. At least you'll stay forever young. I guess you picked the perfect way to die.
Between us, be sure you 10 toes down before I pull out this card. And the only thing that's coming beside me out the situation is you eating the kids.
Ever since she was a little girl in Houston, Beyonce Knowles Carter has been lighting up the stages and gracing the world with her talent, with her generosity of spirit, and with her love for her community. You can see it in everything she does, from her music that gives voice to Black joy and Black pain, to her activism that demands justice for Black lives. So to my girl, I just want to say, you inspire me. You inspire all of us, which is why I'm so proud to name Beyonce the 2020 BET Awards Humanitarian of the Year honoree. Congratulations, girl. Love you so much.
I want to dedicate this award to all of my brothers out there, all of my sisters out there inspiring me, marching and fighting for change. Your voices are being heard, and you're proving to our ancestors that their struggles were not in vain. Now we have one more thing we need to do to walk in our true power, and that is to vote. I'm encouraging you to continue to take action. We have to vote like our life depends on it, because it does. So please continue to be the change you want to see. Thank you everyone who took the time to speak in that beautiful presentation. And thank you, BET, for this honor. It means so much to me, especially coming from y'all. I love you deep. God bless you, and good night.
Asante sana Beyonce, tumekusikia. Now, your world takes you truly around the world. Nanjira, let's talk about the consumer of, in our closing minutes of this show, the consumer of media content. We've talked about media needing to change. How is the consumer changing?
The consumer is evolving as time would necessitate that they do. Part of how we get that is constantly having channels to get our finger on the pulse. And I think to a conversation we started having earlier, to go beyond metrics as the quantitative, number of TVs that seem to be beaming a signal, to figuring out what content are people hoping they're getting out of that. How do we use platforms like social media that give real-time opportunity for real-time feedback? And we see with many of your shows already that people are always willing to engage. How do you normalize that and make sure that you're getting that real-time interactive insights that help adapt the content that is being served and makes for a demand supply chain that really is responsive to the needs of disparate communities? And just one other point there to point out, especially around digital, let's not forget that it's not representative. Not everybody is connected. We have to put in the work, the investments to make sure that we get the voices of those who are not particularly represented on this mainstream, and always looking out for who's not in the room is one way to be able to do that.
And to you, Professor, the evolving consumer is demanding a conversation, not just to be spoken to. How quickly does the media need to adjust to that and to share the space?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about sort of doing serious sort of audience research, really, to know who your audience are and what it is that they're interested in. I think sort of brand loyalty is waning. People don't read The Nation. A 25-year-old will not read The Nation the way sort of a 65-year-old will do. So the only loyalty that sort of the under 35s seem to have is loyalty to convenience. And as long as you're not able to factor that in what it is that you produce and the ways in which you circulate what it is that you produce, then of course you're going to have a problem. Linear TV, for example, is just as in as much trouble as so newspapers. On-demand TV now is quite popular, because people want to watch television when they want to, not because a particular program is scheduled at a particular time. But equally, there's always been sort of this conversation about the fragmentation of audiences. The mass audience as we knew it, the mass public, does not quite exist. Organizations now have to construct their publics. I mean, media consumption has also ceased being sort of a social experience. It's very sort of individualized, and as long as news organizations don't understand the fact that we consume media in a very radically different way, then of course there's going to be problems with that as well. So it's all about understanding sort of who your consumers are and what their consumption patterns are. Again, it all goes back to what I'd mentioned before, the notion of sort of path dependency. The fact that it worked 10, 15 years ago does not quite mean it's going to work today or tomorrow. And I think that's the kind of transformation that we need to be thinking about as well.
Okay, Prof, and to you, Churchill, I know you've been spending quite a bit of time here at Nation, to understand the consumer. What insights are you getting about what they need and where they're going?
One could put those in various baskets. You know, there's and some of those baskets are not new. There's a chunk of consumers, and they keep moving between these different baskets, that are just looking for information, just to be aware of what's going on around them, especially on issues that they're interested in. Others are looking for hope, you know, ideas and information that will inspire them in their individualized spaces, but also in their community spaces. It's amazing the community aspect in a lot of the people that we're having to connect with today, especially the younger people. They're very, very trusting of the groups that they exist in. And I think our newsrooms will need to find ways to access that insight and find ways to feed information into those little groups. But the flip side of that is also the fears, because there's a lot of fear in today's world, and you'll be amazed just walking a few steps away to see the kind of fears people are having to live with. And sometimes our information has not been scientifically attuned to addressing those fears, and I think it's a reality we'll have to confront and to innovate around to make sure that we are delivering information for. So in a way, we have to create the data points that Professor is talking about to understand that audience, to be able to actually play the role of a mirror, so that you can play back this audience to itself, play back society to itself. But we must also be the torch to that society, because every single society that we serve is looking to develop, is looking to improve itself, looking to become much more efficient and much more human, if you like. The journalist occupies a unique position to look much wider in the world and look at that world intelligently and find information that could help these community members, help this society address some of the questions that you're having to struggle with.
Okay, now, Njoki, to you, and looking at the practitioner himself or herself, one of the biggest lessons from COVID is that you cannot sit pretty. You need to be, you need to know that the change can also impact on you. So what does that mean for the journalists? Do they also need to have other side hustles apart from journalism?
No, actually, there's somebody I respect very much who said that journalism is not a career, it's a sacrifice. So there are very few things that you could do on the side if you take journalism as a calling. But I think this is a time for journalists not to get that side hustle, but to think, about the future. Think futuristic for journalists, because what we are noticing about audiences is that they're very picky. They have very low tolerance for mediocrity. They will call you out on your mistakes, and they are very unforgiving. And I think as journalists think futuristic, they need to think about the audience. The audience today is much more educated. They are much more woke, to use the Twitter slang. And so we also need to realize that audiences are increasingly having a very high taste for quality news. They will only consume the news that will resonate with their dreams and aspirations and fears even. So even as journalists continue to rethink the future of media, they need to think about the audiences that they want to attract. Are you relevant to your constituency? Are you relevant to the people that are eventually going to pay for your content if you're a media organization that is looking towards monetizing content? So this is actually a multifaceted approach for journalists. But for me, I think the most important thing is that journalists need to understand their audiences, connect with their audiences, because where we are headed is we are having a winner takes it all strategy, where if audiences decide that we are going with Nation, then we will all go with Nation, and we will be we're not going to pay for content for another newspaper, and so I think this is very key.
Okay, and to you, Nanjira, throughout my years as a journalist, I've only had one editor who supervises me. Now we have millions of them online. They'll correct your English, your writing, your pronunciation. They'll fact check you. What does that mean for practitioners?
And in real time. It's an opportunity. I think it's an attitude adjustment, taking that in stride, welcoming it, and, you know, for where it's useful, actually showcasing that it's been taken into consideration will create a virtuous circle. It's the world we're going into, and it's not just journalists. We're going to see this in every sector, politics too, we hope. It's the new way of doing things. And, you know, listening to Njoki and what she was projecting, this should have been the building blocks. I think what has changed with the digital age is that we see it's a lot more visible, but I think the signals have always been there. Now the question, the onus is on to those who are on the other side of it, the journalists and the media industry. Are you going to play ball, or are you going to, you know, keep on the tunnel vision?
Professor, how much time do we have for change in the media?
I didn't get that. Could you say that again?
How much time do we have to make the change in media?
We don't have much time. You know, it's something that we've got to do now. Change is incremental, but we've got to start now. I think a number of news organizations are responding relatively sort of positively. But let's look at this as an opportunity to transform the way we practice our journalism, but also the place of journalism sort of in the world. You know, every workplace is changing, and they, you know, we cannot talk about sort of media exceptionalism. It has to change with the times. I think that's inevitable. So the time for change is now. We don't expect that to happen overnight, but I think, you know, we've got to put in place, you know, the structures that will ultimately make the business sort of sustainable, but equally much more responsive, you know, to audiences.
Okay, in the last few minutes, I'll just go around the panel to get your closing thoughts on our issue of rethinking and reimagining media. I'll start with you, Nanjira. Your parting shot?
That it should be a present, continuous issue. Because as things get more complicated, obviously, it means that you know, you can't start afresh. You can't start thinking afresh. Someone earlier said that, you know, we need to stop thinking and start doing, and I think it's actually been a change in that attitude itself. Thinking while doing is really what we're looking at, and this decade is going to be quite definitive in terms of who understands that it's not a false dichotomy between thinking and doing. So hopefully we're looking forward, but I re-emphasize no more all male panels and no more geriatric panels.
Point taken. I've made huge notes on that. Thank you so much. Professor, as well, some closing thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think let's be positive, but equally, you know, let's borrow sort of good practice from elsewhere. I think across the continent and elsewhere, you know, news organizations are doing great things. You know, if you look at what sort of the Mail and Guardian, you know, in South Africa, for example, are doing, you know, absolutely brilliant. Let's also borrow from experiences in Europe and the United States. It's not as though contextually they're different, right? But I think, you know, there are issues that are shared across the world. You know, the New York Times, for example, at the moment, you know, they've been hiring, you know, at a time when news organizations are actually, you know, shutting down or cutting down on staff. You know, we have a news organization here that is hiring sort of data scientists, you know, data analysts, you know, people who are interested in predictive analytics. You know, that's the future. So let's have a much more diverse sort of newsroom, not just with journalists, not just with experts, but also those who actually understand technology. You know, journalism is becoming a science as well. We've got to take that into account.
Okay, Prof, thank you. And to you, Njoki, you're not afraid to cause trouble in your column. Do we need more of that going forward?
Yes, but I think there's a lot of hope. That's where I'm focusing on right now. We've been talking a lot about you know, the apocalypse of the media, and, you know, the newspapers are dying and all that. This is the end of the media, but there is a lot of hope. There are very many opportunities on digital, And I saw a tweet the other day saying that, you know, they feel sorry for journalism students because, you know, why should they pursue journalism? But I think even for people who want to come into this profession, you're welcome. Come with as many ideas as possible, because it's not the end. We must be the last to leave. You know, we cannot throw in the towel right now and say, oh, this is it, we are moving to on other careers and all that. Not there's anything wrong with changing your career, but I think what we must do going forward post-corona, even during corona, is to keep hope alive. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And Churchill, final thought from you?
I think it remains true that the best time, the best age to do journalism is now. It's easy to access information, there are tools to verify that information, the interesting way to tell those stories. You know, so there's never been a more interesting time to do journalism than the time we are in. There are challenges. We will surmount those challenges, but our plea must go to our bosses, and the boss here being the public, because every single journalist exists to serve the public. The public needs to take an interest on the journalism that we are doing, and please give us that robust feedback. And my plea is just to my colleagues, let's take the feedback, let's use it to innovate and create new interesting ways to do journalism.
Okay, and Churchill, talking about feedback, hashtag New Normal has been quite alive. Here are some of your comments this morning. This one is from Kilian Ochieng. Radio and TV nowadays is only for entertainment, for example, music and movies. Okay, so forget about news, just entertainment. Sir Ayub Godfrey, well, social media is the only remaining demonstration of the freedom of the press. Media houses are compromised. They are accomplices, you say. Okay, haya, Kalio. Chacha MC, compressed news. I can read 4 or 5 newspapers within an hour. Okay, thank you for that comment. Pendo Onyango is saying from my neighbors, especially women. That's where your sources of information. Hey, okay. Omwami Maish, mainstream media has been hijacked and seems to align to some side. Compromised, hence not reliable anymore. Haya, tumekusikia Omwami. And this one is from Karika Da. Blogs are more instant and give a leak for you to confirm thereafter. Okay, so they're leading the way according to you. Aidan Kaida, social media, because it's ready and available anytime. That's where you're getting your comments. So thank you very much indeed. And another one here from Sarah Carey. You say, social media, I always have my phone on me. Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. Now, just time for me to thank my panel here, Churchill Otieno from the National Media Group, as well as Professor Jojo Gola in the UK, Osun Jokichege, who's here with us in the studio, social distancing by about 20 minutes, and Nanjira via Zoom. We hope we can get you out of that Zoom one day to come back to the other normal. No, she says. Thank you very much indeed. And earlier, we also had from Walter Mwesije, our colleague from NTV Uganda, as well as Sarah Katusia, who is from the advertising world, the managing director of Mediacom East Africa. Now, tomorrow, we focus on COVID-19 survivors in Kenya and other countries. Have you been infected by the virus? Have you lost a loved one due to the disease? Would love to hear from you, and your experience could give hope and encouragement to others. So please contact us via our hashtag New Normal or on our WhatsApp and telephone numbers. Before then, as always, at 6:30, we'll kick off with a workout session through our professional trainers in their homes, leading you from the comfort of your home to lose a bit of that weight and keep fit. So thank you to my panel. Thank you to my NTV colleagues here. Until tomorrow, have a safe day. Goodbye.